me.
She's a former mayor. They're a former evangelical pastor with dissociative identity disorder. These two like to talk about the topics you're not supposed to talk about. They might cause you to perspire just a bit, but they'll definitely make you inspired. Let's talk religion and politics, and what spirituality and emotional well-being look like in a post-evangelical world. This is Paul and Ashley on Evangelicalish.
All right. And yes, tonight's show may definitely make us perspire a little bit.
I'm already sweating buckets. Just kidding. Not really. Kind of.
No.
Kind of. This is going to be, well, this is the interesting thing about this show is the guest and the topic is like, I'm not sure how I feel about it. And so when you said to me like, hey, there's this person, we could do this interview, do you want to do this show? I was like, I don't know. But what we figured would be a good experiment on something like this is like, you did this pre-interview, so now we're going to watch it, total cold read for me, but we can sit here and pause the interview and like break it down and debate points, and like we don't have to just ingest it with the person live in case we really want to freak out about what he's saying.
Yes. And so we're going to be talking about paranormal and demons with a Catholic priest. You and I grew up in a religion that believed in demonic activity and in fact, in some ways, saw demons under every rock and around every corner.
Yes. Plus, we are children of in the wake of the movie The Exorcist. And like Freddy Krueger and all these horrifying things. So
in Satanic Panic, although I don't know, are you old enough to remember Satanic Panic?
I've never heard of that. What is that?
Oh, you've never heard of Satanic
Never
Panic?
heard of it.
You know, that it was probably like mid to late 70s. So you were pretty young.
I was born in 72. So I was a babe.
It was, backward masking in rock music. It was, children are being kidnapped for ritual sacrifice, and just everything was satanic. It was just Satan was everywhere, and Satan worshipers were everywhere, and everything was just satanic, and so it was called the Satanic Panic.
I came along at a time when they were showing the film The God of Rock in like main sanctuary Sunday night services. That I do remember, probably 6 years old, and that was backward masking stuff. Blah blah blah. Satan is the king. Blah blah blah. Yeah,
I remember those where it would go. Did you hear that? It said Satan rules the world. And you'd be like, no, it didn't. And they would play it like 10 times. And you'd finally be like, okay, maybe I heard world in there.
You need to find it. There is a Saturday Night Live spoof of backward masking
that
I recall. I think so. And it's like, blah, 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 Satan is king, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
I remember one where Eddie Murphy played like the fifth Beatle, and they kicked him out of the band. His name was Clarence. And then they played the song backward, and there was John saying, hey, Paul, let's kick Clarence out of the band and steal all his good ideas.
There's that one for sure, but there was another one that I remember. I don't know if I started live. There was some spoof of that kind of thing. Okay. So yes, but we could have titled this episode "The Things That Terrified Us as Children That We're Still Trying to Heal From." Of course, that is a very broad topic because it's a long list, honestly. Yeah, but today is like the real scary one.
Yes, and if you Bishop Long has a TikTok channel with about 700,000 followers, and people are constantly sending him video of paranormal activity, and he will break it down and say, yeah, that's not real, and he'll show you why it's not real. And then other times he'll be like, I don't know. So we may end up doing this as a 2-episode thing because the interview was pretty long. But I will tell you, I asked him about the Fresno night walkers.
Thank goodness. I was just going to say, like, this is for sure the thing I'd want to get his feedback on.
And so we'll see. You can let me know if you want me to tell you or not at some point. But he had already heard of them. I don't think we'll get to them in this episode, though, because it was the very last thing we talked about in the interview. But before we get to that, I think both of us have been feeling the weight of America this week. It's such a weird feeling because there is a group of people that are just like, yay, everything is so great now. America's great again. And I don't want to speak for you, but for me, it just feels like, oh my God, I cannot, like, I'm literally seeing things happen in America that I never in a million years believed we would see, like people getting arrested without warrants to be sent out of the country, some of whom are American citizens, and they're being detained without warrant because they might be undocumented immigrants. And it's just, I'm mortified that this is happening in America right now. And it's been really difficult.
It takes your breath away. And yesterday, I think so. The whole saying, where you sit determines where you stand. In other words, kind of your own experience obviously forms like what's most impactful to you and that sort of thing. So yesterday, the circus act of freezing government spending, watching that turmoil for a solid 24 hours, and then reeling from those impacts and trying to deal with that, and then seeing the thing rescinded today, like that cut me deep. And what I realized in just going through the last day was like, I really do care. Like, these government institutions, there's nobody in our country that would argue they're perfect. Not a person.
And certainly not, you would not argue that.
Of course not. I mean, it's
just, they're not perfect.
Of course not. But what these government institutions represent is, over time, people's intentions, our nation's intentions to build systems and structures that are in place to theoretically, like, take care of the whole, WHOLE, steward our collective spaces. They are the things that establish community and citizenship and place and kind of the shared experience. It's the government in its finest. And again, we know it falls short. We know it's horribly bureaucratic and not managed well. I get all that. But just take a step back and consider the spirit with which these institutions have been enacted over time and built up. And to see the zeal of like tear it all down, shred it. I was just like, oh my God, what, just knowing that it is this very willful, the state is always the problem. And I don't know, I just have a very different perspective. And it hurt deep. It hurt deep. And of course, dealing with all of the, on the service end and seeing all the email threads and, oh my God, this is, and I go to work every day in a building that's owned by the Public Housing Authority. So Section 8 vouchers, and I see the lines of people waiting outside. I mean, it's just all of that, totally thrown into turmoil. That was really hard. I came home last night and I was just like, God, I just feel sad. I've been on the verge of tears all day.
And I don't know, it seems to me like the chaos is the point. Like the administration wants people to be afraid, and in some feeling of beholdenness of we have to be saved by the very people who made the chaos, but with the crackdowns in blue cities that that the president doesn't like. In New York City, Kristi Noem, who is, what is she, Homeland Security Secretary now, a cabinet secretary of the United States of America, is in New York, where they're doing these raids into people's homes to drag them out of their homes and deport them from the country. Not all violent offenders, no matter what J.D. Vance says. Some people they're deporting because they have traffic tickets and they're calling them violent criminals. And Kristi Noem, a cabinet member of the United States of America, is live streaming these raids. Not somebody on her staff, not a friend, not her son. She is live streaming them on Twitter, on X.
Yeah, no, they're the
and
cabinet.
Wait, they had told the ICE agents, be camera ready because we're going to be shooting this. And then at another raid, they had Tom Homan, the border czar, and Dr. Phil, of all people, live streaming the raid. So
I don't get
it's
that.
like it's porn for right wingers to watch these raids happening, and it's sick beyond measure.
Somebody have to explain to me what the F has happened to Dr. Phil. Now, I will say I do not agree in any way, shape, or form, but I understand that the way the administration uses their cabinet picks, they are all just actors in the WWF large episode that we're all watching. And so they've handpicked people that are, the, like, the Pete Hegseths, that are the like TV personalities and, showboats. I get what they're doing. And these are all the like minor acts that surround, the star of the show, President Trump. I think it's completely perverse, and there's no room for it whatsoever, in my view, of government institutions and the role they should be playing in our society. Having said all that, the one thing that has completely baffled me is freaking Dr. Phil. What is going on? All of a sudden, is he there to help provide support for the families that are being torn apart? Is he what is the deal?
So he's not an appointee,
I know,
yeah.
But like, where has he
Dr.
gone?
Oz is an appointee, but not Dr. Phil.
I remember the good old days when it was just like Dr. Phil was buddies with Oprah and we all just like loved them.
Yeah.
I don't get it. And his wife and he would walk out and onto the set every day holding hands. And then of course they got, anyway, like, Lordy.
Yeah. And I guess the point of all of that is for all of you who are listening on podcast audio or with us here live on the stream, just, we're all holding this together. It's not holding it together, but together we're holding the weight of this for each other, because I am working as a professor at a local community college, and I can see it in the young people's faces. They're terrified that dad, mom, aunt, uncle, or themselves are going to be taken, just one day, poof, gone. And that, to me, it just is not America. It is not who we are. And it just, I'm grieving so hard. But anyway, okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to be able to offload that a little bit.
Yeah, which there's not really relief here other than just to put it out there and say it. I'll like to pivot a little bit to comedy because of course that's my coping mechanism. Okay, you guys remember Veep, which is like the best comedic show in American history, I believe. And it's all spoof. It's all like exaggerated, like caricatures of government. Well, there's an episode where the vice president, Selena Myers, who is played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, she stages a drug bust with the Coast Guard. And the whole episode is so hilarious because she's like, how's my hair? I'm doing the drug bust kind of thing. And it's a moment where she's trying to get on camera this really strong statement, and she says, "The drugs stop here," and does this whole performative thing. And the person filming's like, "Oh, sorry, I don't have camera in the film." She's like, so you hear this line over and over again, "The drugs stop here." That was Kristi Noem yesterday, and like in real life, not spoofing government, but actually doing the "Drugs Stop Here" show on a live stream.
Well, of course, she enjoys killing puppies and goats. So, what would you expect? What would you expect? One other note before we get into it, and I'm the king of like, no, we got to get into the show and not mess around. But we are loving Severance season 2. If you are not a Severance person on Apple TV, you got to watch Severance.
Yes.
I'm freaked out. I'm freaked out by the first 2 episodes of season 2.
Well, by the way, we had our staff retreat kickoff today for my office, and I used a severance joke. I actually said these words: "I'm sorry, I'm a severed employee." Only 3 people in the office knew what I was talking about. And then I was like, "Oh, everyone, please watch Severance. You have to keep up with my fascination." So it's useful though. I mean, it's very pop culture. So you gotta. Oh, I know what it was. We're talking about an intercom, and like young people in my office are like, "What's an intercom?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, watch Severance," because like this weird, creepy voice comes through the intercom, and it's how they govern their company. So yes, lots of value added commentary here by Paul and Ashley.
Yes.
Today.
Okay. Yes, Severance. It's very good, and I'm reading every conspiracy theory about the show. Not real conspiracy theories, but inside the show conspiracy theories that there is online. And it's so much fun. Now that kind of takes me away from some of the horrible things happening in
Yeah.
our world these days.
Like it's our escapism. What show are you watching? And it's actually kind of real. I look forward to, I'm going to say, the last 2 days I came home from work and you had a Severance tidbit, and I was like, it's the favorite part of my day. I come home and Paul tells me something interesting about the show Severance. Yeah. All right. So our plan for the next, I don't know, let's call it 30 minutes, is we're going to roll film on this interview with Bishop Long. And now another TV reference. Some of you may have loved as much as we did Mystery Science Theater 3000. I think they've even gotten to like 30,000 or something.
One
Love
of my
that show.
favorite
Used to
shows
watch
ever.
it.
Oh, I
And
love
roll
it so much.
like dying laughing. So we've decided this interview we should do Mystery Science Theater 3000 version, maybe a little bit less on the jokey jokes, but at any point, Paul has agreed if I want to stop. Well, I try to figure out a buzzer sound. Tell me if you can hear this.
I heard nothing. I heard.
So it's not. Okay, never mind. Then my job is to get Paul's attention and say, please stop. We need to stop and talk about what was just said.
Or
So
you can
that's
just
our
go,
plan.
stop.
I can just stop, or we practiced making other buzzer sounds. Auga. I might do auga on the show. I don't know. And those of you in the chat who are joining us live stream, you can try too. Well, we reserve the editorial control of the show, but if you want to pause, you can say like, hey, stop there, and like provide a comment. And we're going to just kind of see where
Or
this
in the
takes
chat,
us.
you can just make a comment. And okay, we're spending too much time on the logistics here. So.
Let's do it. I think it's going to be fun. Let's try it.
Okay, let's try it. All right, here is my conversation with Bishop Long. Presiding Archbishop for the United States Old Catholic Church, has been doing this for a long time. I thought this was interesting. You have a 110-page document attesting to your apostolic succession, all kinds of master's degrees and associate degrees, and you deal. Sorry, I hit the wrong button. Okay.
What is the old Catholic Church? Is that different from like the new Catholic Church?
He's going to tell. He's going to tell in just a second.
And will he explain the 110 pages? Like, what does that mean?
He's going to explain. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's hang in there.
Go.
With the paranormal, which I think would be sort of exorcism and things, and have nearly 700,000 followers on TikTok. At least as of today, you do. We don't know if we will. Bishop James Long, welcome to Evangelical-ish.
Well, I appreciate you having me on.
It's kind of, I'm kind of laughing to have you on here because I remember we had a Catholic priest when I was in 4th grade. He lived right across the street, and he would mow his lawn with his, sort of priest pants on. I don't know what those are called, but no shirt, but his collar. And he would be drinking a beer. And my mom was just, so sad that priest was going to hell. So do we each think the other is going to hell for not being the right kind of Christian at this point?
The only type of Christian that I'm concerned about is one who shows empathy, compassion, and love.
Well, speaking of empathy, compassion, and love,
Amen.
another bishop from the Episcopalian Church spoke in front of Donald Trump the other day, and he lost his you-know-what over it. What thoughts did you have on that whole thing? That was crazy.
There's a couple things. As a communicator, so I want to separate. First of all, she's the bishop.
Yeah.
She can say whatever she wants to. It's a pulpit. I mean, he is a guest at her church. So she is the shepherd. So she has the right to say whatever she wants as the bishop. As long as it's not heretical. But as a communicator, I look at it from a theological perspective and from a secular perspective. From a theological perspective, she had every right to say what she wanted, that she was in the pulpit, she was teaching. That's her right. She's a bishop. But as a communicator, I would ask, well, what is the goal? Is the goal to kind of get Donald Trump to think about, the trans rights? If that is the case, then as a communicator, I studied communication at Loyola University and how we effectively communicate with one another. The problem is from a secular perspective, if her goal is to get him to think about what she is saying, one thing you don't ever want to do with somebody like Donald Trump or anybody who has a large ego is to embarrass them, because then they will never listen to you. It's automatically their message is done. They're going to demonize you. So from a communicator, secular perspective.
So I just want to say that I totally disagree with Bishop Long just there. I mean, I don't disagree with this underlying point, but here's the thing. It wasn't just about getting him to listen to her. It was making room for a perspective that I think there's millions and millions of people who are feeling this way towards him, and she gave voice to it. So I think it was a wrench in the wheel kind of thing. And nobody thinks that Donald Trump's ever going to listen to anybody besides himself and whoever agrees with him. So I don't think that was necessarily called for, Bishop Long.
If my goal is to appease this person, fluff up their ego so then I can have a private audience. Martin Luther King was brilliant in this, brilliant. And if I could, because sometimes that's what you have to do, because if you're, as you're saying, you're going to get more honey with bees than you are with vinegar. And so
I think he meant to say draw more bees with honey
Yes.
than vinegar. Yeah.
No, I don't think that's it either.
I think that's
Oh, what is it?
It's not the right saying either way. You
You
don't,
draw
because you don't
more-
want bees.
You draw more.
I mean,
What
in the
is,
saying,
you draw
it's-
more flies with sugar than honey or than vinegar. What is the
Oh my
saying?
gosh, I don't know.
Well, it's something like that. Somebody look it up and let us know in the chat. Come on.
what you have to do sometimes with people who have such huge egos. You can't put them on the spot. You can't embarrass them. You have to fluff their ego, have a beautiful service. And he says, oh, it was beautiful, it was wonderful, it was blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. Then can I call you, or can we have a meeting? Sure, come on in. Then have a conversation with them privately, because you're going to get far. I think if you're going to.
So now the president has meetings with evangelical pastors on a regular basis.
All the time.
And that doesn't.
People are always
anything.
getting private audiences with him.
Yeah.
Agreed. I just think it's foolish to even act like there's some way to get to him. There's not.
Yeah.
There's not.
Get anywhere, you're going to get it much further by doing that.
I mean, I don't think we're saying Bishop Long is foolish, but yeah, I think we're just I think all you can do is call out Donald Trump at this point. And again, I think you were right. She's really talking more to other people who just want somebody to call this guy out. And it just was beautiful. And
It was
yeah.
beautiful. I think it was like it was connecting with the conscience of America, and it was saying there is still a conscience. There are still people who um who were like, show mercy. That mattered so much to me, I swear. Anyway, this is definitely not the point of Bishop Long's interview, but for some reason that really kind of bothers me. And by the way, Laura, thank you. You attract more flies with honey than vinegar. That is the saying we were looking for.
Yeah, isn't that what I said?
No, you said bees.
Oh, I thought then I changed to fly. Well, anyway. And I think there is a principle in the universe of he's responsible to those words, whether he believes it or not. Like those words, it's like John the Baptist calling out King Herod and getting his head cut off. He still called him out, which I think maybe I bring up here. Let's see.
Then by embarrassing, now you're a demon. And he's going to demonize. So I separate them. I separate from a theological perspective to a secular perspective. And that's how I look at it.
It's such an interesting perspective, and I love that. And my wife and I talk about this a lot because she has served as an elected official. She's a bridge builder. That's what she does. And I'm more of the maybe John the Baptist type that goes in and says, you're wrong, and I do, I see that, John the Baptist, we sort of say, wasn't it great that he went in front of Herod and said, what you're doing is wrong? But then he lost his head, and we never saw Jesus go in front of Herod and do that. So I guess you could say maybe that wasn't John's best idea. So, but I also never saw Jesus go to like Caiaphas and say, you're really cool, Caiaphas. You do a lot of good things because right. I want to have a time alone with you to try to talk you out of your terrible beliefs.
But again, you gotta look at the goal. What is the end goal? If it's to humiliate, successful. If the end goal is to get him to think about a different perspective, failed.
Anyway, I think it's interesting to hear a different perspective. And I can appreciate where the bishop is coming from, but yeah, I think we both disagree with that. All right, let's see if we can move forward a little bit to some demons. What do you say?
Okay, let's get there. Let's do it.
By the way, we'll skip over. I may end up skipping over. The Old Catholic Church is a Dutch version of the Catholic Church that was given autonomy from the Roman Catholic Church and prospered and did very well. And then apparently the Roman Catholic Church came and said, we want all your money, and basically took everything from the Dutch church. And so the Dutch church took like a vow of poverty, and then some of them ended up coming to America. And so Bishop Long talked about how nobody in the Dutch Catholic Church, or what is now called the Old Catholic Church, gets paid, that he does not get paid a salary for being a bishop, or none of the priests get paid, or whatever. They have to raise their own funding and such. So
that's amazing.
And they are not a part of the Roman Catholic Church. So it's a very different thing. Really interested to hear more about this. And I even told you I'm a little bit skeptical about it all, but Bishop Long deals, sorry, I got to look around my camera here, in the paranormal. And here's a video of him doing a duet on TikTok of a paranormal appearance in somebody's place of residence.
Watch the pets. In just a moment, I'm going to show you a video submitted from one of my followers. You're going to see a hallway on the left side of the screen, and that's where I want you to pay close attention. Watch that hallway.
I just want to make sure, can you hear that okay?
I can.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe sometimes it's just better not knowing. You'll see stuff.
He's a first responder.
That maybe you
We salute our first responders.
Check this out.
Wish I could make it bigger.
Wow, that really is impressive, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little bit hard for us to see.
So what you see, when you zoom in closer, you can actually see a shadow, a dark shadow that
Mhm.
crosses.
Is your house haunted? Do you have any kind of paranormal?
So, do you believe that is a demonic presence in that house?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay, but possibly.
Well, it certainly is possible. But see, I have been, so I've been in the paranormal. First time I investigated the paranormal was 35 years ago. And that was at Waverly Hills in Louisville, Kentucky. And we were allowed to go up there. Waverly Hills is this massive, gigantic, old tuberculosis building. And it was abandoned. The owner didn't care. So I went up there when I was a teenager with a kid. And boy, we had
So this was before your time as a priest.
Oh, yeah. This was when I was like, yeah.
In your bio, you said you wanted to be a priest since you were 5 years old.
Yep, I knew. Yep, because I remember being in kindergarten, and our teacher asked us on Friday what we wanted to do, and I told her. And then I was going to mass, and then my mom asked me, "Well, what did you do on Friday?" Because she was in the medical field, and she was busy. And so we were going to the church. I said, "I want to do what he does," and I remember that like it was yesterday. And so my calling to the priesthood has never ever faded, ever. It's only increased. So,
wow. And so out of that, you're walking through life, and then you get this chance as a teenager to go to this building, this abandoned building.
Yep. This abandoned building, and Waverly Hills is notorious. I mean, it's world renowned. And so we went down to the basement area, and there was paper everywhere and file cabinet, everything. And there was an old rusty chair that was on his side. And I tried to move the wheel. You couldn't even move the wheel. And we heard a little, like, it sounded like a child crying. But it was coming from upstairs. And we thought, well, that's kind of close. It's so big, it's easy to get lost there. So we thought, okay, we got to go find out what's going on here because help this kid. So we walked up these stairs, and the hallways echo. And it was down, way down the hallway. And so I got closer and closer to where the restroom was. And these were these old metal stalls. There was 3 of them. And we heard a child cry, and it was like, where are you? We're trying to help you. So we opened one stall, nothing. We opened the second stall, nothing. And obviously the third stall, we thought maybe they just got locked in the stall. So I tried to open it, and I could not. Now, so I'm trying to open it, and it was like someone took a sledgehammer and hit the stall so badly, the entire stall shook. I mean, it shook violently. We ran so fast. I don't think we touched the step. When we jumped down those steps, and when we got down to the bottom, that rusty wheelchair, that wheel was spinning. And I was like, nope. So, but the thing with so I've always loved the paranormal, but what I do is not so much paranormal, it's theological. Because
you're not a ghost hunter necessarily.
No, I don't go around cemeteries and ghost hunting and things of this nature. And I don't even like the term ghost hunting. It's like, what are you hunting? What do you mean? It's kind of, that in itself seems strange. But so what I deal with is theological. I deal with people who are legitimately terrified, who cannot get help from their clergy. And so then I don't get involved until it's real. Well, we can go further. I can explain longer, but we might be getting ahead of myself. But
okay.
So
yeah, I mean that's what I'm looking for is
okay.
How did you get into this as a priest?
Sure.
And I'm really interested, but yeah, maybe we start there, and then I'm interested in.
So when they say, okay, here's all the evidence, and there's something there, then I find a way to get to that family's house because they're desperate. And that's what I've been doing. And as of today, I performed 33 exorcisms on people who were violently possessed. I do work with psychiatrists, and I under no circumstances would perform an exorcism on someone without having a psychological evaluation first.
Were you waving your hand?
Yes, and he kind of started to explain it, but I was curious when he said, I get to people who desperately need the help. They're terrified and they don't know what to do. So he's talking about the person who is self-identifying, experiencing like demon possession, right? And,
yeah.
And he goes to help those people. Okay.
Yeah, and he may say it later, and I skipped forward just a little bit, but I know at some point he says, he's been doing this for like 35 years, and he's done 33 exorcisms. So pretty rare that they
Okay.
and he'll talk about how they send people in and they do investigations to see if there's something that they suspect is real long before they ever get to a point of an exorcism or anything like that. So
Okay.
it's kind of fascinating.
It's not negotiable.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I told you before we came on the air that I do have some skepticism, and it's
Sure.
mostly out of my own growing up in Assemblies of God. It's one of those independent Protestant evangelical denominations, and so I was trained a lot in demonic possession and casting out demons, as it says in the Bible. And I am 100% convinced that we took some people that were suffering from, I would say, mental illness. I don't even like that term. Their brain was doing what was needed to protect them with the tools they had.
That's right.
And we tried to take those tools away from them because
Amen.
it was a psychological issue. And I just repent of that on a daily basis now, being in my own journey, that we did horrible things to people. And they would scream, and we're like, listen to that demon scream, you know, and all of these things. And it was very dramatic, and people would tell these dramatic stories, and I think it was terrible. So I love that you're getting a psychological evaluation on people. And is that sort of how you start to tell the difference between somebody having a psychological inner battle versus somebody having something external that is tormenting them?
Yeah, well, let me say one thing. If any of my priests ever performed an exorcism, one, without permission, and two, without a psychological evaluation, I would defrock them immediately. There would be no negotiation, because they know that's unacceptable. So we don't even with the deliverances. So I am really very stern about that, because I find it abominable with many of these people doing this and not having any type of psychological. So look, here's the deal. I am not a psychiatrist, but I do work with people who I respect, who absolutely are convinced that possession exists based on what they have seen, and certainly what I have seen. For example, a person who is, again, mental, you're right. I don't like that mental illness because it's such a stigma on that word.
Yeah.
But we are all broken in some way, technically broken. In
I don't even like that word either.
Yeah.
We all work in different ways.
Right. We all work in different ways. And so, for example, a person who has, let's say, psychological issues, struggles, however terminology we come with, that doesn't cause them to levitate. A person who's mentally ill does not have languages, knowledge of unknown languages. They don't have prognostication or retrocognition abilities.
Sorry, I have to, not to be that guy, but have you seen people levitating?
I have never seen a levitation as far as 4 feet, but I have seen a person, they were lying here on the back, and here's their torso. They were laying up, and they just went up like a V shape, just like that. Their vertebrae was cracking. And I originally thought, oh my God, they broke their back, because I could hear the snap of the back of the vertebrae. And it was just like someone had put a string and just lifted them straight up.
Wow.
So
okay.
it wasn't.
Sorry to interrupt your story, but I assume some of us out there were like, wait, what? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. And of course, that was a case, obviously, of an exorcism that was required. But so we make sure that the individual is not under any form of psychosis. Or, for example, someone who, and this happens a lot, which I really am upset about, but someone who performs an exorcism with someone who had dissociative identity disorder, you can create another identity. And that to me is an abomination. That's terrible.
Let's stop on that one.
The idea is hard enough as it is.
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously that hits home.
Yes, it does.
What were you thinking when he said that? Like, has it ever occurred to you that any of your parts may have come from, I mean, did anybody ever try to do an exorcism on you?
You know, I don't think an exorcism per se, no, but in some of the, well, what we called sozo in our church, some of the mental health prayer journeys, I think there were things of, is voices you're hearing, are they helpful, are they not helpful, things like that. And I know when we met with some partnering churches of ours, and they talked about people having guardians, and their instruction was, you ask the person, do you need the guardian or do you not need the guardian? Our people from our church were like, no, you never want a guardian to stay in there. And that's a little bit of what I was talking about, of like, you throw that thing out, or you try to take somebody's guardian, or what we might call a protector, and you're really taking away a very vital tool in somebody's emotional health journey. So I actually I'm going to try to skip over it here in a little bit, but I did talk to him about my DID journey in this. So yeah, it was very pertinent to what's going on in life.
Did he know when he was, did he know your DID? Okay. So that's interesting. And then one other comment before we keep rolling. This is a lot more interesting than I thought it was going to be. So
Okay,
I was poo-pooing like, oh no, weird, freaky. And now I'm like I'm totally getting into it. So that's just a commentary. It's so weird to hear your voice. And I like when I think you're talking to me, as in the person who's co-recording this right now. So for anybody who's watching this or listening, let's say listening, audio only, you must be thinking that you're the one hearing voices, because there's two Paul voices, but it's actually, we are watching a recording of Paul interview this person. And I am having a hard time keeping that straight. I keep thinking Paul's talking to me. So my apologies.
True that.
Yeah, it's a very freaky deaky kind of thing.
All right, let's see where we are in the recording now.
About these ideas that people have about paranormal investigators is that not everybody thinks everything's a demon, and that not everybody trucks around, the graveyards, and these people put a lot of money into this equipment, and not only that, they never charge. They go to people's homes whom they don't know. They don't owe these people.
He's talking about his investigators now. He has a network of investigators who, when they get a call from somebody who says, we're desperate, we have things going on in our house that we can't explain and we're scared, Bishop Long will call somebody in his network and say, go investigate.
Well, what kind of equipment do you think they have purchased, and what do they roll up with?
Well, let's see if he tells us.
Anything. And they could be travel 8 to 10 hours away from their home. They leave their family, they investigate, and it takes hours and hours and hours just to review all the evidence. First of all, you have to investigate.
And then they're not recording for a TV show, I assume.
I would absolutely, if anybody went to someone's home and did it for a television show or their YouTube channel, that would be done. I would have no association with them, because because in the 33 exorcisms that I performed, we do record them for legal reasons, but they will never, under any circumstances, ever be showed. I was doing a paranormal conference. I was teaching about demonology, and right in the middle of the conference, a network had contacted me, and so I put it on speakerphone. There's a room full of people. And Bishop Long, yes, Bishop Long, we have a show. It's greenlit, means it's ready to go. It's been approved by the network. All you have to do is go and perform an exorcism on someone on camera, and then we'll pay you X amount. It was a lot of money. We'll pay you X a lot of money, guaranteed. Even a producer, all this other stuff. I said, so you're telling me all I got to do is perform an exorcism on someone on camera for your network, and I get to make all this money? Absolutely. I tell you what I want you to do. I want you to go and I want you to get on your knees, and I want you to ask God for forgiveness, because what you did was just an abomination. Never speak to me again. I hung up, and people looked at me like I had 3 heads. Because see, the thing is I'm really strict about never charging. I've had people say, Bishop Long, get to my home and I'll put a second mortgage on my home. I've had people bawling on the phone, begging, and I'm telling them, I can't get there right now. I've got to raise funds to get to your home. I mean, they're bawling. I've had people take their family out of their home, and they're living in their family's neighborhood, or they're at another apartment or a hotel, because they will not go back in that home because they're that terrified. So when they ask, well, how much do we need? You don't need anything. You just let these teams come in. So the team comes in, they investigate, they gather all the evidence. It takes about 6-7 hours to do that. And then
can you give
probably
us a couple of
Yeah.
examples of what evidence would be?
Okay, so for like there's a EMF reading, so it's electromagnetic field. So for example, if you have high EMF readings, sometimes that can cause delusions, hallucinations, sickness to the stomach, migraines, and so dizziness. And so that's one thing that they're always looking for. So we do baseline readings first. So before we even begin the investigation, they always do the baseline readings to determine what the EMF reading is. And then after that, all the baseline readings, temperature, everything. Then once all that's been documented, then we begin the investigation. And then if there's any spike in EMF or weather, temperature, anything of this nature, or growling, there's called EVP work. EVP is electronic voice phenomena. So you have a digital recorder, you play it back, you hear a voice, you know it wasn't supposed to be there, but it's there. I have lots of EVPs that are quite chilling. And then you have what's called a disembodied voice. A disembodied voice is one in which you can actually hear it. So it's recorded, but you can actually hear. So all this, let's say if there's religious artifacts on the wall, you need to document this. Has it been blessed? And then does anything occur to them, or did anything occur to them when in fact the investigation occurred? So there is a form of provocation. Provocation is not beating your chest and saying, come on, demon, I dare you to do something. Because if a demon is there, a demon will looking at you say, oh, I will. I'll do something when you're lonely and you're depressed and your wife or husband leaves you and you lose your job. That's when I'll do something. So you've just given an invitation. So when you begin to provoke, you begin to pray. And so they pray, and that's provocation. There's going to be a response. And so we determine what the response is, how violent is it, and then we go from there. And then they review all the evidence, submit it to me, and I make the decision on whether or not we need to go. Now that's what the.
So how do you feel about that, Ashley? You want to go into a house where they think there may be demons and try to provoke them to do something?
I do not. And I'm when he said, when you start praying, they'll be provoked. And I was just thinking to myself of all the years and times and places where I sat and prayed somewhere, I never felt an immediate evil, like demonic reaction. So then I'm thinking, but was that going on and I didn't know? Or like, I'm not really sure how to think about that. And I'm literally was just imagining like sitting in my, my place where I just kind of sit, meditate, pray, journal, whatever. I've never felt, I wonder if I would feel like a struggle or a tension. I always only feel just openness, and I mean, maybe sometimes distracted for sure, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I wonder if that's been going on and I've been missing it, or maybe we just live in a non-demonized house. I don't know.
Maybe.
I mean, oh my gosh, our dog pees on everything. Maybe he's like feeling the demonic and he's trying to like put it out. That's the only thing I think is gross
He's
in our house.
blessing our house all over
Yes.
and marking
Yes.
it, and that's protecting us.
Yeah. So what is your reaction to what he just said about praying and that being provoking to demonic spirits?
I'm kind of in the space of my saying of, I use AT&T, you use Verizon, we access the same grid to get to the same place. Like if you're calling our daughter, I'm calling our daughter. And so I think there's some validity to, like, we can have these interactions with the spirit world through our own spiritual path. And so I think there's some validity to that. I really struggle, and if we do the rest of this next week, I struggle with the idea of the story of Satan and a third of the angels falling from heaven, and there's just these really angry little imps running around the earth wanting us to be angry and miserable too. So that's a bit of a struggle for me. But could there be, spirits that are stuck and trapped and thus causing issues in some way. Or and one thing I asked him that we can hear next week too is like, is there a quantum physical part to this? Is there something more scientific and less mystical? So I'm kind of into all of that, but probably the one thing that I would validate in it is, I don't know, have you ever had that feeling where you walk into a room and you're like, oh wow, something's weird here. There's like a weird vibe here, or I'm feeling something here. I don't know. Have you ever had that feeling?
Like going to your family reunions? I mean,
that religious demonic spirit is, that's the one I sniff out more than any other.
I mean, yes, I have. Short answer, yes. I remember not long ago, this was like 2 years ago, and you and I went to this local restaurant that's wonderful, and it's kind of coming out of COVID. So they had main dining and they had a bar, and they were doing main dining in the bar, and they were doing takeout. So we went for takeout, and we were sitting there waiting for our food, and there was definitely something about the energy of that space that was off. And then that happened to be, do you recall, this was one of your parts got very agitated, and we had to like leave quickly. And that just, it produced a lot of anxiety in your system, and I could see it like coming over you. I was like worried about you, and we got out. So I don't know. I mean, that might be kind of a good recent example.
Yeah, I remember that. I was in a town over the summer on the trip, and I won't name the town, I guess, unless you think I should. I came back and said that's a weird place. There's a weird, it feels icky there, and for no other reason, it's just icky. That's all I could.
Okay.
There's a weirdness in
Right.
the atmosphere.
So I will say, like, I definitely can. I don't know. You can get a feeling about a place based on a lot of things. You can, based on the things you can see, based on, the building architecture, the zoning, just like the physical space, the built environment. You can definitely I feel a lot of like, but I think I connect it more to the intentionality of the community and previous generations of like what was important to them. Well, this town square we put a lot of energy, like, look how great this, but I think it's more stuff I'm assigning of like, wow, people must have really cared for this place back in the day for this still to be here and to be cared for. And then I interpret that and experience that as, a loving thing. And I love it. I'm drawn to it. And the opposite is true. When a place is very uncared for and you can tell it's just like a depressing kind of place. So I would say that, but I think it feels more just like interpreting intentions over time based on what you can see and observe.
Yeah, I really do believe in the Christian New Testament, it talks about principality, that we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. We're not battling against people as much as a principality or like a mindset or a groupthink. But I think a principality is more generational, and so generational trauma, or that this stuff is passed down through the DNA. So if you have a community where people have broken through and there's generosity and they care about intergenerational issues, I think that builds a principality that a discerning person can feel in the air. And the converse is the same. You can feel that, and you're like, ooh, what is it? Something doesn't feel right here.
Such a good point. And honestly, just take out the word principality and say culture, right?
Yeah.
And then like it doesn't have to be a spiritual principality. It's like the culture, the thing that we now know. Maybe you can't touch it, feel it, but it is the way people behave, the decisions are made, sort of the if a place has a bad culture, an organization or whatever, it doesn't matter who the people are that are in charge. It's just like the thing always kind of goes off the cliff. and changing that is such a big deal. So it's easy to think about it that way for sure.
Yeah.
Ethan's comment in the live stream chat is really interesting. I don't know if you want to read that real quick.
Go ahead.
Ethan says, definitely, I think this is in response to your question. Like, have you ever just been in a place where you can instantly feel something different? He says, or Ethan says, in Brazil, walking along part of a secluded beach, I came upon, and I'm unfamiliar with this word, candomble? What is that? A shrine. Okay. A
Candomble. I
shrine.
don't know. Yeah.
And the negative energy came at me. I saw what it was and apologized for intruding and backed away, nodding my head and up and down. And then I ran a far piece and stopped, and I knew I was alone again. This was a bright, sunny day. Ooh,
Wow.
Lord Jesus. I have to travel tomorrow. This is freaking me out.
Yeah.
I'm going to New Jersey, where all the like weird UFOs are anyway.
He says it's candomblé.
Candomblé. Interesting.
Yeah. And I do think all of this stuff is things that we were taught, none of that mysticism is real when you're in a Christian. And then you think about it, like, is there anything more mystical than like I get to go to heaven because some guy died 2,000 years ago and that blood takes me to heaven? I mean, that sounds pretty mystical.
And I eat the cracker and somebody's body is in me?
Yeah. It's a pretty mystical belief system.
Yes. Well, and it's like every world religion has a mystical version of it. And if you look at for the mystics in each major world religion, I'm certainly no expert, but what I've heard talked about is like there's a lot of, when you get up sort of spiritual and mystical kind of place, there's a lot of like, it all kind of starts to sound the same.
Yeah. Yeah,
so
I think
that's
so.
interesting. Yeah.
I have to tell my one ghost story before we go. I know you've got a hard stop here, but there was an abandoned house. I probably was in 9th or 10th grade. And it would have been 9th grade because I was in Missouri. And and of course it's haunted. And so somebody came up with the brilliant idea of let's do a seance in this house. And so we had this candle and, none of us even knew what a seance was, of course. But so we go in this house and we go into this room and it's so freaky and we're all terrified and we're all trying not to act like we're terrified. Like it was, 3 males and a female. We're standing around this table and we have this candle on. And all of a sudden, the door swings shut, and we are like out of there. And I was the first to the door, and I just knew I was going to get to that door, and it was locked. Of course, I get there, and it's not. It was open, and we opened and ran out, and then we're like, did we leave the candle burning in there or not? We did. And like somebody's got to go back in there and make sure we're not burning the house down. And somehow I got elected to go back in. And so I went back in and got the candle and it was out by the time, when I went back in. So it's very likely some wind came whipping through the house and slammed that door and blew out the candle. But we were pooping in our drawers for sure. And I was absolutely certain we were locked in that room. So
wow.
Thanks be to something in the universe that we weren't.
I'm curious. So next week, our plan is to finish this interview. Will we hear next week, like more stories? Will we hear, anything that kind of grounds this in something that is, accessible for those of us who don't walk around thinking about the paranormal so much?
Yes. We'll very much get into really sort of one time where he was doing this and kind of the logistics of what it looks like, a time when a demon made itself known in the house where they were, and what it looks like when somebody gets released. Yeah, so very much what the exorcism looks like, and what are the results of an exorcism. So part 2 next week, we will blind react. Okay, hope you all will join us, and hope you enjoyed this, because it's a little bit of an experiment for us to try it out.
We love your feedback. So feel free to chime in. You can shoot a message to Paul, direct message on any number of platforms. Pick one, you'll find Paul, and let us know your thoughts. And I wonder too if next week we can talk a little bit about a mental health version called unattached burdens, just like in the IFS world, and like just sometimes there's things in there that are not attached to the system. We could have a conversation about that. But also, this is a little bit of a break, I think, from the dailiness of what's happening all around us. And we'll spend some time next week with a little more reactions and reflections on the political world we're living in right now.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, everyone. Thanks for hanging out with us. We love you all. Talk to you soon.